And I was like, I remember when I hit the tree, my back sounded like a gunshot going off. I can wiggle my toes. I'm like, I can't feel my dick. like, can't be too bad if I can wiggle my toes out back from me. So I'm like, I'll just fucking get me to hospital. I've got this sweat. So came out of that, and I just remember coming out of surgery.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the M26 Fit podcast. I'm your host, Magnus Olsen. Today's special guest is someone who has a story of resilience that most people will never see or know about. In 2018, a downhill mountain biking accident resulting in a spinal cord injury that changed Kenton Matthews' life forever. While many people would have seen the limitations, Kenton chose a different path. He rebuilt his life one step at a time, having to learn to walk again. He's also a business founder, creating Dynatech Consulting, whilst by becoming an advocate for people living with spinal cord injuries. Today we'll find out how he took back control of his life and now how he owns his future. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thank you.
Mate, I did a bit of research because both of us seem to have a bit of a passion for things with two wheels. Whether it's BMX, mountain bikes, road bikes or motorcycles, there's something about them that keeps us coming back. But the statistics are pretty sobering. Australian research shows motorcyclists are around 13 times more likely to be killed per kilometre travelled than a cyclist and around 17 times more likely to suffer a fatal or serious injury per hour. So it's fair to say you spent a lifetime around high-risk sports. But what fascinates me isn't the risk itself, it's why you do it. Do you think it's the speed? Is it the mastery, the challenge, the adrenaline rush? Or do you think it's just part of your identity? Is it simply who you are? What do you think?
No, it's the feeling, 100%. So there's when you're bombing down a hill at 1,000 miles per hour and you're only just in control, it's a good feeling. Your mind can't wander. And I think when you've got an active mind and your brain's always thinking about various things, you can't do that when you're pushing it. So, and then it's just the thrill. And then it's also you surprise yourself in what you're actually capable of. And then it falls into a bit of a trap. You just keep chasing that same feeling and you want to go harder and you want to go harder. And then you find the ceiling of your ability, which usually results in a crash. and then you got to build that confidence back up and then you go again and you go again. And, and I think it just comes down to you just really enjoy pushing yourself over and over and over. And then you just surprise yourself with your physical and your mental capacity, I guess. So.
It's interesting. That's a similar way I've described it to people, particularly when you're doing a track day. And I'm the same thing. I really struggle to sit and focus on something singular. But when you are traveling at that speed, like you're not thinking about work, you're not thinking about what you're doing tomorrow. You're just thinking about that braking marker and that next apex. Yep. All the while just twisting that throttle and having a ton of fun.
Oh, it's so true. And to me, different bikes bring, different. You find joy in it for different reasons. Like for me, road cycling, it's a place where I can think. So, put the headphones in, listen to a podcast, or maybe I just enjoy riding solo. It's just you're in your own space. You're not going anywhere. You're probably on a bike for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours or whatever. And it just gives you a space to think. Whereas the mountain bike, you can't think about anything else but what you're doing. So, which in itself is great because, you get on a mountain bike and then you just can't focus on anything but what you're doing because otherwise it's not going to go so well for you.
Has that been something is that right throughout your childhood? I was just thinking if I were to ask your mum what you were like as a kid growing up, what would she say?
Intense.
Were you always a bit of an adrenaline junkie as a kid?
I think so. But I think the difference being when I was a teenager, it come from a place of ego. Put a pretty girl in front of me, I always had to, go do a big jump and show off. And usually that would end in a crash as well. So I think the drive came from a different place. So as a kid, you just wanted to hit the biggest jump. You wanted to be the best person there. You want to be the fastest. So, and naturally when you just want to be the best, you just keep pushing yourself and pushing yourself and pushing yourself. Where later in life, I do it for my own enjoyment. So, it's almost like mindfulness, or it keeps your nerves in check. So, especially if you're riding technical terrain on a mountain bike, you've got to be in it, and it's a challenge, like a mental and physical challenge. So,
I remember I was 6 years old when I got my first BMX bike. Do you remember how old you were when you got your first bike, and what was it?
Oh, geez, first bike. Yeah, definitely would have been in primary school. It wasn't really my thing. I remember seeing other kids like ride BMX bikes, and I was like, oh, how do they do those jumps? That's so cool. And like, so it was always in me from that age. And then I think when I got into high school, a good friend of mine at the time, like he was right into downhill mountain biking, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, that's so cool. I want to be able to do that. And then, you know, sure enough, you start riding bikes down silly things, and then one thing leads to another. But yeah, interestingly, I sort of like at the end of school, I sort of like, oh no, I'm a grown up now. Like I've got to be responsible. I'll sell the bike. And then a really good friend of mine, we just bumped into each other, and then he sort of got me back on a bike, and haven't put it down since.
So how old were you when you first started getting competitive in that mountain biking scene?
I can't really say I was ever truly competitive in a sense. I mean, I was always known for doing dumb things on a push bike. That was kind of my reputation. I'd, you know, take my bike onto the top of someone's roof and ride it off, or hit a big jump that no one else was silly enough to do. So that was kind of my reputation. I was never really racing or anything, but I was just naturally competitive. Like if I was in a room, I had to be the best, and typically I wasn't, but I would strive to be the best, and that would usually mean you push beyond your limits. So naturally you end up crashing a lot. So that results in lots of injuries when you're younger, and then as you get older and wiser, you realise, you know, riding within your ability is actually more enjoyable. So
what are some of the injuries that you suffered when you were younger?
Oh, plenty of pedal strikes to the shin. So you know, there's stitches all through the shin, blown out knee, dislocated shoulders, got, you know, two or three broken wrists, plenty of concussions. Riding myself off, like rode off multiple full face helmets from smacking my head too hard. Yeah, lots of crashes and lots of gravel wounds. So you just get good at crashing.
So mountain biking, and then you said you rode road bikes as well. So what's a typical week look like for you? How many days are you on the bike?
This day and age, I'm typically on a bike 5 to 6 days a week. So for me, if I've got 3 bikes, so a road bike and 2 mountain bikes. And a good week for me is if I ride each bike at least once. But typically that would be multiple road rides a week. And then, normally a mountain bike once or twice a week as well. So
yeah,
just keeps the skills sharp, keeps the body in check. So
fair enough. Mate, take us back to the day of your accident. What do you remember? Is there anything so it's like it happened yesterday, like it was 2018, so 8 years ago?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it feels like yesterday, but yeah, I remember everything pretty distinctly. So, leading up to the accident, I was going through an interesting transition in life. Like I was married, quite young, had a young daughter, left my wife at the time. So just kind of rediscovering myself, figuring out what do I even do with my time. I realised that I enjoyed bikes, so you just kind of gravitate to the things that you enjoy. And then, worked my ass off all through my 20s, and I was like, I'd love to go overseas. I haven't really been overseas before, so I want to, plan this trip to New Zealand. We're going to go ride the bike park for a week or two. And then it's just a bad series of events. I was working in Sydney at the time, came home, realised that, when I got home late on a Friday afternoon, I'd been robbed, and my downhill mountain bike was stolen. I was like, oh shit, that's no good. Like, how am I going to ride a bike park without a bike? So I was like, I purposely won't buy a bike, because if I buy a bike, like I'm not going to, chances are the cops will find it, and then I'll be out of pocket for this bike just before the trip. So I left it to last minute, and then I was like, okay, clearly the cops aren't finding this bike. I better go get a bike. So I went down to a local bike shop, picked up this bike that I was keen on. I was like, oh, do you mind if I go test ride? He's like, yep, go for a test ride. So, and I just remember distinctly on the day, I was like, I just feel a bit off. Like something's amiss. Like I just feel a bit uneasy. And ironically, there was an ambulance at the top of the track already. And I was like, yeah, like just something wasn't adding up. And I'm like, oh, anyway, I need to see if this is what I want to buy. So yeah, just started riding tracks that I've ridden 1,000 times before, and then the track in Toowoomba was called Cheeseburger, and then just started going down that, and towards the end of the track there's a technical descent, and just went down that like I have 1,000 times before, and front wheel ate a rock, and then hadn't set the suspension up the way I liked at the time, so the bike just did something different that what I wasn't expecting. And then when it hit the second rock, it just flipped me over the bars, and unfortunately I just went back first into a tree and then bounced off the tree down the embankment. And I was like I remember when I hit the tree, my back sounded like a gunshot going off. I was like, oh fuck, and then hit the ground, and I've gone to get up. I'm like, fuck. I'm like I can't move. Like what the fuck? And then and then I'm just the pain was unbearable. Like I'd broken plenty of bones before, but I was like something's not right. So I was like, sort of, because I'd gone down the embankment, I was like trying to dig into the track with my hands and trying to climb up because I couldn't move my legs at the time. And then so I was yelling out to the other guys. There was a couple other guys that were like, I wasn't actually riding with them, but fortunately we were all close by. So I'm like just screaming to them like, come fucking get me up onto the track. Like I'm super uncomfortable. Like, oh, we don't want to move you. I'm like, fucking move me, like get me on the track. So they grabbed me by the arms and dragged me up onto the track. And then so I remember them calling emergency services, and I'm just laying there. I'm like, holy fuck. I'm like, to this point I've never done drugs, so I was like, has anyone got fucking anything like Panadol, weed, like anything? Like I just need something to kill the fucking pain. And they're like, man, we got nothing. We're just trying to get you comfortable. So like take my shoes off, and I'm just fucking in agony. And then they call emergency services. They're like, yeah, we suspect spinal. Don't move him. We'll try and get a helicopter to you, but they'll. Careflight was already attending another accident, so they couldn't get to me. So they're like, you're just gonna have to tough it out until we can get the fireys down to you. So I was like, holy fuck. I'm like, just get me out of here. And then I'm laying there. They're like, oh, like, how do you feel? I'm like, oh, I can wiggle my toes. I'm like, I can't feel my dick. They're like, what do you mean you can't feel your dick? I'm like, trust me, as a bloke, you don't think you can feel your dick, but when you can't feel your dick, you can't feel your dick. And I think just the shock and everything was going off. And I'm like, it's not that bad. Like, I can wiggle my toes. I'm like, well, can't be too bad. If I can wiggle my toes, how bad can it be? So I'm like, I'll just fucking get me to hospital. I'll be sweet. So, and then eventually, like after about 45 minutes to an hour, the fireys got there, and then they're like, yep, we'll drug you out. So they hit me with a bunch of morphine, and I'm just sitting there, and they're like, oh, has that done anything? I'm like, no, it hasn't done shit. And they're like, can't give you any more. And they're like, you should be out of your face. I'm like, I'm feeling really relaxed, which is good because your body's like so tense, like you're just locking up. And then so like the morphine just helped me to relax. I'm like, it's doing nothing. I just felt like my body was like plugged into a 240 volt socket, which I then later realised that's nerve pain. And then so they got me onto the stretcher. They're like, we can't give you anything more. We're giving you the green whistle, giving you all the morphine we can give you. We've got to get you to hospital. So anyway, so they got me to the hospital. I'm sitting in the back of the ambo, and one of the fireys is riding my bike, which wasn't my bike yet, but anyway, riding the bike out and having the best time. And then took me to the hospital. They're like, yep, suspected spinal. This is serious. Like, we've got to operate. Anyway, obviously they tell you the worst. It's like, probably won't walk again. I'm like, I doubt that. Like, I can wiggle my toes. Like, that was just kind of where my head was at. And then so anyway, they loaded me up on a helicopter, flew me to the base, the PA hospital. And then, rushed me straight in for surgery, and then came out of that. And I just remember coming out of surgery, I just felt like $1 million. I was like, holy fuck. I'm like, the pain is gone. I'm like, this is amazing. And it's basically because I'd, got rid of the nerve pain. But yeah, that was kind of the start of the journey, I guess. And then it was a long road from there. So, and then unfortunately it got badly infected in hospital, so I went back in for surgery a week later and scrubbed me out, and then that didn't get rid of the infection. So then, it was on a pretty nasty course of antibiotics for 15 months until I went for another surgery about 15 months later.
So when did it sink in, the actual extent, and what was the extent of your injury?
So basically, the injury itself was a burst fracture of L1, so that's what did the damage. So effectively, what I suspect happened is I had a camelback on. So when I've gone up, gone over the handlebars and back first in the tree, I had a shock pump because I was intending to, get the suspension working nice on the day. And then the shock pump's got like a pressure gauge, which is glass and metal. And I noticed later, many months later when I was going through that bag, there was a small dent in the pressure gauge. So I assume that the pressure gauge is what's hit my vertebrae and just shattered it. So effectively the whole vertebrae just exploded, which got dislodged into the spinal cord, and then I fractured L2, and then so effectively on the spinal cord side of things it was 60% compression. So it's sort of been explained to me that your spinal cord's like a banana. So once you deform it, it doesn't really recover. So if you think of your spinal cord like an 8-lane highway, mine sort of went down to like a 3-lane highway. So then the problem is that your body at that point doesn't know how to communicate with other parts within your body. So the nerves are still active, they are for a period of time. So then, your best window of opportunity in gaining, and having a successful recovery, or, making the recovery that I've had, is just getting super active and, trying to, reignite those neural pathways within your body. So, because of how hard I pushed in rehab, that's, plus a lot of luck as well.
So let's talk about the rehab. How long and difficult was that recovery, and what did you struggle with the most?
Just on, it's ongoing. Like even now, I haven't made a full recovery. So to this day, I'm still totally incontinent. So piss through a straw, can't go to the bathroom like a normal person. Still got daily discomfort that I live with, that I just manage through diet. And then obviously because my bowels don't function, I manage that through diet. I don't have a bag or anything. So that's what it looks like today. And then,
but physically speaking, I know you're back on the bike, you're riding, you look, because I see that to be one of the challenges. So from the outside, and when we first met, you function, or you appear to function as a normal person.
Yeah.
But I know that you were discussing off camera that recovery, like you had to learn how to walk again. Like what did all that look like?
Yeah. So straight after surgery, I had physio come and see me in the morning. So basically had no sleep. The drugs were wearing off at that point. So I was in a fair bit of pain. And then I just remember physio coming in and they're like, "Oh, we got to get you up out of bed. We want to see if you can walk." I'm like, "You're fucking kidding, right? Like I just had surgery." And they're like, "Oh no, it's super important. We get you moving. It's important for your recovery." I'm like, "All right, well, fuck, if it's important, let's go." So, anyway, so I had a team of nurses. So there was 4 of them, and they're just trying to get me from like laying to sitting, and then that just the fucking pain just put me through the roof. Like, okay, no, we've done enough. Like, put you back. I'm like, "Nah, get fucked." I'm like, I didn't just go through that for you to like. For us to give up now, like you got the fucking walking frame, let's go. So they're like, okay. So, anyway, so then a team of nurses just basically tried to they practically lifted me out of the bed into the walking frame. At that point, I'm nearly passing out from the pain, and they're like, okay, we want to see if you can take a few steps. And then it's weird because you don't notice this when your body functions normally. Like you can tell the brain is sending the signal and your body's not responding. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is weird. And then, so anyway, I can't physically move my legs at this point. So, the nurses like kind of grabbed a foot and moved it forward. And then I basically did 2 steps with the assistance of the nurses. They're like, yeah, that's enough. Like, you're in too much pain. We've got to put you back to bed. And I was like, okay. And then it's just, it's like going to the gym, right? It's just progressive overload. So it's just that day after day after day. So instead of 2 steps, the day after that, it was 4 steps. Then you go back to bed, you pass out, you're fucked, you're tired, you're exhausted. That just takes everything out of you. And then you just keep backing it up day after day. So yeah, but then the injury itself, because your body's in so much, your body's in so much pain and, it just cannibalizes itself. So in 2 weeks, I stripped 9 kilos. Unfortunately, that wasn't fat. That was all muscle mass. So you look like a dying cancer patient at that point. Like, I've always been, I wasn't like ripped or anything, but I was always like, in reasonably good shape. And then, it's just weird. Like you just strip all muscle mass from places you don't even realize you carry muscles. So, and then that's where it gets exponentially harder because at that point you've got no muscle mass. So you need, so you've got no strength. So one of the big reasons I made the recovery that I did is because I was able to push myself to get out of bed with the assistance of the nurses and stack on that day after day. I didn't realize this until I got into rehab that they usually can't get someone out of bed for a month. And at that point, they've lost all their muscle mass. Degeneration, yeah. And then they haven't really fired up any neurological pathways. So they're sort of a month behind the 8 ball, but the pain at that point is more manageable. So, because I kind of pushed hard, that contributed to the recovery that I had, and no doubt there was, a good friend of mine. She had a similar injury. She wasn't so fortunate. Like even though the MRI would suggest a similar level of injury, like people respond differently. So she's never really had full control of her legs. So whilst I could, with the assistance of the nurses, I still had slight motor movement. It impacts everyone differently. Like she just never had that. So she's never had the opportunity to get out of a chair. So so a big part of it's luck, a big part of it's, resilience and just being able to push through it. So, but you need both. So, but it's very rare that someone has my level of injury and dodges a wheelchair. So, or has my level of issues, I guess, and dodges a wheelchair.
So you feel grateful, you feel fortunate.
Yeah. I remember when I got out of hospital, because I was in hospital for just on 2 months, and then I got discharged, which was like unheard of. Normally, like the average hospital stay for that level of injury would be say 6 months. So I managed to discharge quite quickly. I think I was the first person to physically walk into spinal rehab, and I remember going in there because at that point I'd finally managed to get out of the walking frame. They're like, "Oh, sorry, visitors aren't allowed here." I'm like, "Oh no, I'm here." And I remember it being a really weird feeling because when I walked into rehab, obviously there's people there that are less fortunate than me, and you just feel like an imposter. You're like, the fuck am I doing here? Like, I can walk. These guys, like, there was one guy with an iron lung. He couldn't even breathe on his own because, broke his neck. And then obviously there was another guy there that had a helicopter crash. He was paraplegic, and there was quadriplegics, and people are only just starting to learn how to walk, 6 to 12 months in. I'm like, here I am walking into rehab. And I'm like, why am I here? It doesn't make any sense. And then, I remember feeling uncomfortable, and other people like, what the fuck is with this guy? And then, and then when they realize, and they're like, oh no, he's just as fucked up as us. He can just walk. So like, he's still, like I didn't realize that I was totally incontinent till I got to rehab, which was 6 weeks after injury. So, because, obviously when you're in hospital, you got a catheter in, you don't, at this point, I think the weight of the injury and me just being a dumb fuck, I'm like, well, if I can wiggle my toes, it can't be that bad. Like, I'm not a paraplegic. In my mind, it was a binary sort of injury. It's like you're either paraplegic or you're not. So my own stupidity and lack of understanding of spinal cord injury is what kept me hopeful. And then I think the weight of the injury didn't hit me till I got to rehab, because they're like, oh, you won't be able to go to the bathroom normally. I'm like, sure, I might just take the fucking catheter out and I'll take a piss. They're like, okay. You've got like, they did the ultrasound, they're like, you've got like a litre of fluid in your bladder, like that's way too much. I'm like, that's weird. Don't feel like I need to go to the bathroom. And then they're like, okay, you need to go, you got 10 minutes to take a piss, and if you can't, you learn how to self-catheter. I'm like, yeah, no worries, I got this. I'm going there, I remember holding the old fella, I'm like, nothing's happening. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, surely something's got to happen. And then, at this point, because I didn't have a great experience in hospital, to be fair. They misdiagnosed my bowels. So for like 6 weeks, I was shitting myself uncontrollably, and then literally in nappies. So I was like learning to walk with fucking nappies on, and shitting myself everywhere I went. And then when I got to rehab, they're like, oh, they've misdiagnosed your bowels. You don't have an upper motor neuron issue. You've got a lower motor neuron issue. So the reason you're shitting yourself is because we're pumping you full of laxatives to get you going, but like, you can't go to the bathroom normally. So it's just basically, with the amount of laxatives you're on, it's just going to keep oozing out of you. Makes sense. So then like, oh, so that's the good news. The bad news is for you to go to the bathroom, you need to stick your finger in and pull it out. And I'm like, fucking what? I'm like, nah. I'm like, there's got to be another way. They're like, that's it. I'm like, holy fuck. I'm like, all right. So that was confronting, and I think that took.
Well, how do you deal with that mentally? How did you deal with that mentally?
I think for me, I just go, it is what it is. Like, that's just kind of my outlook on everything. I'm like, yeah, I think if you circle back to now, it's like control the controllables. Like, this is where I'm at. Like, yeah, and when I was in hospital, all I wanted to do was get out of fucking hospital, and all I wanted to do was get back on a bike and ride a bike. Like, I was looking at bikes in hospital. I'm like, cool, I want to get out of here. I want to get back to work. I had a new job lined up. I was just like focusing on where I wanted to be rather than where I was. And then don't get me wrong, like you have your bad days. There's a few moments where you're just like, holy fuck, this is a lot. Especially
because you just gone through a divorce too.
Yeah, going through a divorce, and that was, that didn't go so well either, unfortunately, despite me wanting different, but that's not how it played out. So yeah, I was like going through divorce, had a job where I was like a key member of staff. As soon as I realised, this is a major injury, he's not coming back, unfortunately that company was going through financial hardship. So then it went from being very supportive for the first couple of weeks, like, we need you back, and then they realise I'm not coming back for some time. They're like, and then, anyway, they ended
Give someone else your job.
Yeah, pretty much. They made me redundant through all of that, and then that, like dealing with, so you're going through a divorce, losing your job, whatever the hell's going on with your body, and then you're just like, holy fuck, I'm like, what is going on? So yeah, 2018 was a shit year, and then I had another job lined up, thankfully, and then they were like, yep, we'll keep the job open for you. And then when they realised the severity of the injury, they're like, no, you're too much of a liability. We don't want you on the books. And then I was like, fuck, I've been working hard to like in my mind at the time, I was like, if I don't get back to work, like it's going to take me forever to find my feet. Like my career was really starting to, get humming along. So if I don't get back into the workplace, like, especially when you work in technology, like things move very quickly. So I just had a lot playing out at the time. So,
how has your definition of success and your outlook on life changed since the accident?
A lot, to be honest. Like, I think I've had a few interesting moments over the years. Like, so I think the accident itself is like, if you don't have your health, you got nothing. Like, it doesn't matter how much money's in the fucking bank account, what car you drive, what your girlfriend looks like, as a young 20-year-old, later 20s at that point, those artificial things that you sort of care about at the time, you just realise none of it's actually important. So I think that was quite humbling. And then I think, all you care about is like just your body being able to function. Like, I just want to walk. I just want to pick my daughter up. I just want to fucking brush my teeth and not spit in the sink with it all fucking going down the front. So you just want the basics that you can't have. I just want to be able to ride a bike. I just want to not be in pain. So you just realise that, I want to be able to go in public and not shit myself. I don't want to carry catheters around. Like, you just realise that your health is everything. If you don't have health, you don't have nothing. And then I think the other realisation that I was starting to have even before the accident, like just in my career, I've worked for very wealthy people, and you realise that, wealth doesn't create happiness. So if you're not happy within yourself, no external thing is going to make you happy. So
what do they say? Like, if you're a bit of an arsehole and then you get a lot of money, you're just
a
an
bigger
arsehole.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about business, because you're also a founder of Dynatech, and tell us a little bit about that business and also your passion for how that is helping in the assistive technology space.
Yeah, sure. So it was interesting because I'd run 2 business units in my 20s. One of them was for a mid-sized company at the time, and then they were dabbling in audio-visual and automation and that sort of thing. And then I was like, so they kind of wanted something young and dumb and full of energy to run it out. So I sort of built that, and that turned out to be quite profitable. And then when that company went through financial hardship, it actually put me in a fortunate position in the sense that it was the most profitable part of their entire business, and they were a security company at the time. And their core business was security, but yet without the audio-visual, they weren't profitable. They were going to get liquidated. Anyway, that company ended up collapsing, but through that process, I got picked up by Australia's largest electrical contractor. They were wanting to get into, specialist services, so that being security and audio-visual. So I managed to pick that gig up. So that was just after my spinal cord injury. And then basically built their audio-visual business unit, which still operates successfully today. That's kind of where, like, I've always been passionate about solutions. I just want the right solution for the customer. Like, almost in an arrogant way when I was younger. I was like, no, this is how it's got to be done. Like, this is why it's got to be done this way. And my standards were, ridiculously high. And I think where I was quite fortunate is that I've done everything from sales to programming to project management to national deployment. So when you've got that rounded experience, you sort of realise that you've got the perspective, yeah. Like, I know what it's like to be the technician. I know what it's like to be the project manager. I know what it's like to be the sales guy. And then, naturally you start running teams. So you sort of see it from everyone's perspective, and everyone is equally important throughout that entire process, despite the earning discrepancies between each of them. So when I went from a mid-sized company to a large company and starting it from scratch, I was like, well, clearly I seem to be good at this. And I remember even when I was working at Stowe at the time, a couple of people said, like, what are you doing? Like, why not go do this for yourself? And even when I started with Stowe, I was like the youngest account manager that they'd ever employed. So an account manager was quite a prestigious role in the world of Stowe. Basically run a business unit within the company. And then, I just made a promise to myself. I'm like, the next career jump, like the next career hop, I'll do it for myself. And then, funny enough, I ended up getting offered another opportunity whilst I was at Stowe to go and work for a big American tech manufacturer. And I was like, well, maybe I'll make an exception for this. So, because that's context that I don't have. Like, it's a different experience. And it was a BDM position at the time for like the leading automation provider, which is Control4. So basically my role was to get that into luxury high-rise developments. And then through that, it gave me a really unique perspective. All of a sudden, instead of me working my own silo of, high-end commercial AV and automation, I started seeing other businesses, how they do things. And then I realised that, every business has its strengths and weaknesses. So like some businesses were like technically brilliant, but hopeless at running a business. And then other businesses were amazing at the business aspect, but technically incompetent. So I'm like, well, there doesn't need to be more of us. So this is kind of where the, Dynatech consulting emerged from, was like, and I didn't want to deal with end users. I'm like, I'm sick of dealing with end users. I just want to be B2B. So then I was like, well, I'll just help those who already do what we do, execute projects and, put systems in place within their business and that sort of thing. And then I think through that, our learning rate was really quick, because we see multiple systems, multiple vendors, multiple businesses. So then I got to see what worked well, what didn't. We had a knack of picking up disastrous projects and bringing them out the other side. So then naturally you're just encountering lots of different problems. So you're just like, okay, well, how can we stop these problems from unfolding? That sort of went along with the advice that we'd provide, how we develop solutions, and then we just try to make it as robust as possible. I had the context of the vendor or the manufacturer, plus, the integrator, plus the client or the developer or whoever it might have been. So then you start looking at through the lens. It's like, well, what's the perfect outcome for everyone? So we'd start working towards that. And that led to managed services, because then we get to the end of these big projects and everyone's like, well, we want you to service it. Clearly you're the brains behind it all. Like, well, we don't deal with end users. And then that kept happening. We're like, okay, well, now we need managed services. So there needs to be a clear line in the sand. Like, if I don't deal with the end user or anyone above the electrical contractor, how do we ethically take on a client? Because otherwise my business model is toast. So then that was the birth of managed services. Basically, we'll only deal with someone if they're on a managed service contract. If not, the answer's no. So, because we'd have builders and developers regularly hit us up and say, can you do this for us? And I said, no, but partner us with your electrician. So that was kind of the business model. And then that got to an interesting place. I realised that key client risk was a big thing. And I'm like, and when I set out to start business, because how that all came about, I got made redundant from Snap One, which owned Control4, because of the tech downturn after COVID, and that was the trigger point for me to start in business. And then, that grew fairly quickly. The team started growing, and then I got to this challenging place where I wanted to let go of my biggest client because they were causing too much stress for me and the team. They were damaging my reputation. But then I was like, well, my reputation alone is not bringing in enough work. So, like, how do we overcome this problem? And then I was like, okay, well, no one knows you exist other than the people that are in the industry. So, and your business model's a bit quirky, and we don't have a minimum viable product, so we can't really market anything. So, all right, so how do I solve this marketing problem? Well, I need to figure out what a minimum viable product is. I'm like, well, how do you do that when you sell big, bespoke, custom solutions? I'm like, that's challenging. And then I just got chatting to a mate of mine at the time who runs another security company. And he's like, why don't you just buy Pro CCTV? Like, it's for sale. And it's kind of done what you wanted with marketing. And I was like, oh, yeah? I'm like, I'll have a look.
Buy the solution.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'll just buy a business. You know, that makes sense. And then I was like, fucking haven't heard of Pro CCTV. And then, but they were pretty well known in the security world for not necessarily the right reasons, you know, from an industry perspective. So I was like, oh, okay, I checked it out. I was like, yeah, it's got a good website, it's got a good marketing presence, and then kind of realised that it had the foundation that we needed to gain traction very quickly. And I was like, well, I'm prepared to spend all this money in marketing, and it's going to take me 2 to 3 years for it to come together. If I just buy this business, I can get rid of my you know, key client risk, which will buy back my sanity. I'll just buy this business that's properly in the fucking hole, and then, which is good because I've got resourcing, so I can just bring my resourcing in. All the staff within the business had left. That's why the business had imploded. So I'm like, well, I can turn it around. And I'm like, business hadn't been around for all that long. It was only 3.5 years. So I'm like, they haven't sold too much quirky shit, so the liability's not that big. They sold Ajax. I'm like, that's as simple as it possibly gets. Like, the technology doesn't get any simpler. We can scale it. So I'm like, cool, I'll buy the business. So from that discussion, I then met with the previous business owner a week later. And then I'm like, well, what do you want for it? And he told me. I was like, oh, well, if it's worth that, I'll pay that. Did the due diligence. They're like, yeah, seems like a fair price. I was like, all right, we'll buy it. So, and then bought the business. So, yeah, in under 6 months, I bought that business, sacked my key client at the time in Dynatech. Dynatech became the ugly redheaded child that went in the corner. I was like, James, you just do what you do and just keep the wheels on that. I'm gonna like get this business back on track. And then, which was brutal. So, because basically all the customers and people that had warranty issues, they just got neglected for 6 months whilst the business was in a hole. So that business settled 19th of December 24, and I'm like, I just need a break. I'm fucking nudging burnout. And then I was like, all right. So I went on a 2-week holiday with my partner at the time, and then you know, just kind of switched off the best I could, and then decided to pick the ball up on 1st of January and fucking buckle up. So it was just getting punched in the face continually, like trying to, you know, I just remember when we took over the business, it's like, all right, what have we inherited? So previous business owner wasn't all that ethical. So, yeah, we basically, you know, we had a bit of a legal battle there for a period of time. Fortunately, that all went away. So, you know, I didn't have anyone to lean on. I was just like, cool, I've inherited this shit show. I've got a big business loan now that I've got to pay. I'm like, I've got to make this work. I don't have a key client that I can invoice anymore. So,
sometimes you got to wake up in the morning and put your mouth guard in.
Basically, yeah. Yep.
So let's just go beyond the business side of things for the moment.
Yep.
But what's a typical day like? Just getting back onto that health front and getting back onto the fitness front. Yep. Like you mentioned, you're on the bike most days. Is there anything else that you do? And then just run through just your nutrition for us a little bit, so we can gain a little bit of a better understanding of what that looks like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So like a big value of mine is just health and fitness in general. And like if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. If you keep your body in check, it keeps your mind in check. So to be fair, I did let myself go through business. Like naturally I went from cycling, 15 hours a week sort of thing before I got into business. That slowly declined, through mid-23 to virtually nothing. I think, for me I was doing like 2,000 or 3,000, it would have been about less than 3,000 Ks a year. So relative to what I would normally do, I'd normally do say 15,000 Ks a year. So I'd properly let myself go through 2023. And then 2024, my ex-partner and I, we broke up in mid last year. And then I just remember, like, I'd hit rock bottom at that point. I'm like, I'm just physically, like, under a lot of pain. Like, a lot of my day-to-day discomfort was, like, really starting to ramp up. because I wasn't physically
What sort of discomforts are we talking about?
Oh, good case in point. Like I'd go down and go to the bathroom in the morning, and like I'd have to squat to lift the toilet seat, and I'm like, and even then I could feel my back tweaking as I squat to lift the toilet seat, because until my body's just always really, really tense and really, really tight. So, and I was just like, fuck, this is bad. I'm like, like.
So were you still doing continuous rehab, like exercises, to be able to try and loosen that up, or that had stopped?
No, I'd really just let myself physically go. I was still lean, or not as lean as I am now, but like, I was still skinny, so to say. Like I wasn't overweight. So like because I have to keep my diet in check, because if I don't keep my diet in check, I'm prone to having accidents and, like shitting yourself in public. So naturally I'm heavily motivated to keep my diet, reasonably clean. But alcohol had crept in, a lot of tension in my personal relationship, a lot of tension in business, because trying to get a distressed one back on track, trying to run another one. Like I just had a lot on my shoulders, and I was nudging burnout. We're going through aggressive growth. Growth obviously chews a lot of cash, so financially things were extremely tight as well. And then when I went through the breakup, that's just when it hit me. I remember it hit a really difficult point. It was just like a cash flow pinch. I'd brought on a sales guy. We basically burnt through all the cash reserves in the business in trying to get him up to speed. We just kind of realised it wasn't the right thing. And then you don't realise you're in a cash flow hole till you're in one. I was like, holy fuck, I've got to put a whole heap of money in my bank account. I'm like, the only way I can do this is sell my way out of it. I'm like, either that or I've got to have a really uncomfortable conversation with my creditors. So yeah, I was just like, the only way I can get through this is if I fucking cut the shit and just get my life back on track. I'm like, when did I feel the best? I'm like, it was when I was racing in 22. I was like, I was fit as fuck. I wasn't drinking. I was riding 15 to 20 hours a week. I was hitting gym twice a week. I felt good. I felt like I looked good. And then because I felt like I looked good, that just, keeps your self-esteem high. And I'm like, fuck it, I'll just do that. So, yeah, basically I was just, going through a lot of emotional upset at the time with the breakup, and then the pressures of business. And I was just like, fuck it, just make time. Like, doesn't matter that you're busy. Like, you're in this hole because you haven't made time. So, yeah, so I just prioritized myself. I just like, cool, I need to be available for a Teams call at 7, so I've got to have my ride done before then. We'll just start with the basics. At that point, I think I was doing like 3 rides a week. I was fucking lazy. I just put my bike in the car and drive to the ride and then do the ride, and then that was enough. That, I just had, to me, I was just like, progress is key. As long as there's progress, it will come back. And then, so that's kind of where I started. I cut the alcohol out, managed to sell my way out of the cash flow hole for that month. And obviously that just doesn't solve the entire problem. So then continue to, get the business back on track. And then I just realized that I'm feeling better because I'm not drinking. I'm less moody. I'm less reactive.
I got to ask, I'm just curious, how difficult was to get back on the bike? I know a lot of people, they can suffer a serious injury with a particular sport, and yet the last thing that they want to do is, in particular, run down a downhill track. So how was that for you, or was that even a problem?
No, it was terrifying.
So you had to force yourself into it, because it almost seems that part of your identity be on 2 wheels. And even though you did suffer the accident, you still wanted to, and you had this, I guess, burning desire to get back on the bike, you were saying, even through your recovery.
Yeah, I didn't want fear to rule my life. So I had a desire to get back on the bike because it just brought me a lot of enjoyment. And then when I got out of hospital, like at that point, like my whole rehab was like, get to gym, like swim in the pool, just do something, some form of movement, and then get back or crash out for the day. So at that point, because of the pain, I had to ride the mountain bike because I needed the suspension to soften the bumps and that sort of thing. And I was absolutely fucked. And it was like a 3K ride to the gym. Like, it wasn't far. And then, and that would ruin me. So then I just it's just progressive overload, right? Like, if you don't continually stress yourself, you don't improve. So, I just ramp it up a little bit more. And then all of a sudden I could, instead of just doing the 3K ride there and the 3K ride back, then I could do the 3K ride there, go down a little further and get a coffee, and then I'd go home. And then it's like, cool, now I can spend half an hour in the gym. Now I can spend 45 minutes in the gym. Now I can lift heavier. Now I can swim further. So it's just like chasing progress. And then that's what enabled me to get it. And then and then I was building up a new bike because I'm like, I'm going to get back on the mountain bike. And I remember the first, at this point I was still living in Toowoomba, and I remember getting my new mountain bike. So this would be 5 months post-injury, and I rode it down the track. And this is just when 29-inch wheels became a thing in mountain biking. They were like the latest craze at the time. And I remember riding it down because I'd just come off a 26-inch bike, and I was like, holy fuck, this thing rolls fast. And I was just like, the biggest smile. I was like physically I was fucked because every little bump's just going through my body, and I'm like, this is agony, but I'm like, this is so much fun. And it was just the speed, and then just the hair, like the wind moving through my hair. I was just like, I'm like, this is sick. And then and then you just chase that feeling, right? So then like less than 6 months I was hitting 40-foot gaps, on a mountain bike. So like straight after the injury, and just doing dumb things again. But yeah, it's just that rush.
Mate, I've got to ask, what does the expression built to last, what does that mean to you?
Built to last. So to me, the word robust comes to mind. Like, and if I look at what I'm, like business for me is a big focus at the moment. And to me, cool, we've gone through this aggressive growth. We've acquired a business. Everything's going, trending in the right direction. We've grown 48% from the previous financial year. So we've just had massive growth on growth. We've got massive growth plans again. But I'm like, there's no point in just chasing growth for the sake of it, and whether that be personally, like through fitness or, whatever, like, it has to be a purpose behind it. And then, so the purpose is what anchors you, and then making it robust just enables you to, it's like, I never want to get into a difficult cash position again in business, where we've just come out of another one from all the growth we've had this year. So it's just like, cool, well, what's going to stop this from happening? It's like, cool, I've got to, we've built the team. I've got my time back. So to me, I look at everything as like energy. It's like, well, the most important thing to me is my own energy, my own headspace and time. So it's like, cool, like I aggressively invested in building a team. So by building a team, that got my time back. I'm like, the money will come. Like, I just got to trust that, so that put us in a negative cash flow position for a while. So then, which was fine, that was strategic. So I was like, cool, I can weather that as long as the revenue comes, which is now coming quite quickly. So I'm like, cool, we've got the team, so that's got my energy back, that's got my time, that's got my focus, it's got a lot of my stress back. So that's what's enabling me to, ride a bike 6 days a week, plus hit gym, plus live a life and just work normal 9 to 5, like, a normal employee, I guess, but I get to build the business and not work within it. So I'm like, cool, I've succeeded at that. The money is starting to come through personally, but I don't really care. I'd rather invest in making the business robust. So to me, that's like, between the two businesses, internally we have, another company which employs everyone, has all our supplier accounts. So I'm like, cool, these two businesses generate revenue in very different ways. There's a lot of recurring revenue in both, so that makes it quite robust. We've got sticky clients. Pro CCTV is a sales and marketing machine. We attract a, good quality clientele. Those clients can move between either business. Dynatech is very specialist and project and, heavy management, plus the managed services. So naturally, we're just building a very strong ecosystem within the business. So to me, making it robust gives me my time and my energy. And to me, that's what's important. It's like, I want to be, and I want that in life as well. Like, I want good connection with people. I want health and fitness. Like, I don't really care for the business being successful in the traditional sense. I just want it to be robust, because for me, I don't want the stress, because the energy for me is more important. Like, if we get a shit client, I'm just tell them to go away. Like, I don't care. I don't want to deal with them. So I'm like, this is our ideal client. We don't discount, take it or leave it. This is how it is.
What would you say to somebody out there listening who's just struggling a bit at the moment? What advice would you give them?
Just back yourself. Like, yeah, one of my favorite sayings is like, if you see your reach is limited, you'll receive the little that you expect. So, and I think if you just force yourself to think bigger and bigger, and I think you need something to anchor it to. There has to be a purpose, and the purpose normally comes from a vision. So like, figure out what it is that excites you, and then build backwards from there. And it doesn't matter, like I mean, my goal in business is to, build it into a bit of a monster. Like, the goal, whether we achieve it or not, is irrelevant, but the goal's to create a $50 million, business by the time I'm 50. So at the moment I'm 35. So, but I've built the financial model, so I know what that looks like, how we're going to achieve that, and then I measure myself and the business again and every member in the team against how we're tracking towards that goal. So to me, whether we hit 50 million or not, I really couldn't care. But to me, it's the progression. And to me, I really enjoy just optimizing every little thing, whether it be my diet, my lifestyle, the business, a solution. I'm like, cool, where did we fuck up? So there's a big accountability piece. Like, you have to just keep reflecting on it. It's like, okay, why has this client got the shits? I'm like, they've got a fair point. I'm like, if we had done this, that outcome would have been different. So if you just take accountability for absolutely everything, like, life just gets better. So.
Yeah. All right, mate, we've just about run out of time, so we're going to get into the quickfire question time. Just a reminder that we got max 1-sentence answers. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
A song you just must sing along to.
Oh, don't have one, to be honest.
All-time favourite movie.
All Bad Boys 2.
If you had to choose a mountain bike or a road bike.
I'll mountain bike every time.
Best place you've ever ridden.
Queenstown.
What are you grateful for?
Life.
One piece of technology you can't live without.
I could happily live without technology.
What's one habit that's had a significant impact on your life?
Discipline.
The greatest advice you've ever received.
Find your purpose.
The biggest lesson your spinal cord injury taught you.
Health is everything.
One person who's inspired you the most.
Don't have a straight answer for that.
If you could solve one problem in the world tomorrow, what would it be?
Get off the hamster wheel.
How do you want people to describe you when you're not in the room?
Couldn't care in the slightest.
Good answer. What does own your future mean to you?
Be accountable for everything.
Final question. Finish this sentence. I believe.
I believe I can.
What a great way to finish, mate. It's been an absolute privilege and an honour to have you in the studio today. I really appreciate your authenticity and your honesty in sharing your story, mate. You're an absolute inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the M26 Fit podcast. If something landed with you today, share it with a mate, hit subscribe, and keep showing up. One day at a time, one rep at a time. Stay aligned, spirit, mind, body.